The top-level peace talks between US and Iran in Islamabad failed, with US Vice President announcing that they are heading back to the US without any agreement. The talks continued for 21 hours. The talks, which were extended well beyond their original schedule, landed, and they went on for that long, turning inconclusive.
We have been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
Over the past 24 hours, discussions were held on topics including the Strait of Hormuz, the nuclear issue, uranium enrichment, war reparations, lifting sanctions, complete end of the war against Iran. And the Iranian state media said that Iran-US negotiations ended without an agreement. It further suggested that America's excessive demands prevented a common framework and agreement. Well, the Iranian state media said that Iran repeatedly presented new initiatives and tried to invite the American side. However, US stayed unrealistic, preventing the achievement of a common framework at each round. It then further added that despite Pakistan's intervention early in the morning, suggesting another round of talks and exchange of texts, which ended without a result due to the same American spirit. Well, the state media added that as long as the US does not agree to a reasonable deal, there will be no change in the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, adding that Iran is in no hurry for negotiations. Now, just minutes after his press conference, the US Vice President left Islamabad for Washington. Vance boarded Air Force 2 at 7:08 a.m. and waved to Pakistani officials from the top of the stairs. All right, next I'll be playing you some excerpts from my conversation with Dr. Avner Cohen, who joined us from California. He's a professor of non-proliferation and terrorism studies, Middlebury Institute. I discussed with him the path forward, the possibilities here on after, and the desperation for a deal knowing that it went on for 21 hours. Let's listen into these excerpts.
Well, obviously, it appears that the two parties reached some kind of impasse. It was very much a signal of the United States to tell the Iranians, you're just too far with your demands and you must go down. There is still time. I mean, the ceasefire, fragile as it may be, has 2 weeks. So this is first round, and I think the U.S. signal is very, very strong. We're not going to waste our time and to try to get you in some kind of negotiation. If you're not going, we have a certain red lines. And if we are that far, we have to leave. And that message was very, very clear. I think the expectation or the hope, the American hope, is that it would require the Iranians to have some kind of rethinking, revisiting. My own sense is that Iranians are quite stubborn and they quite have a sense that they have not lost the war. They were able to survive. This is a very much asymmetrical war. And they're ready to absorb again because the regime has survived. So it's a kind of difficult situation. We'll see whether the U.S. signal and to what extent it would be received in Tehran.